What's going on? Welcome to circle video number 1. For today I'm going to show you how to make a 3D printed time lapse like this without using Octolapse or a Raspberry Pi. For this build, you're going to need one 3.5mm to 2.5mm auxiliary cord. You're also going to need one 3.5mm audio jack, one limit switch which comes in a pack of 10 on Amazon, a piece of some copper wire, heat shrink tubing in case you don't want to mess with soldering. This is a little easier. Some number 2 by 1.5 inch wood screws I picked up from Lowe's, a pack of them for pretty cheap. One M4 by 12mm screw and T-nut. And lastly, you gotta print out the switch mount. I linked this in the description too. And this is created by Isaac879 on Thingiverse. Schematic looks something like this. We start with the lever of the switch facing to the left. The black wire end is then attached to the ground pin on the far right of the switch, and the red wire end is attached to the left of the black wire, and that is the middle pin, also known as the normally open pin of our switch. And then these leads will come off and go into the audio jack as illustrated right above. If the longer pin is on top, then the black wire is connected to that, and the red wire is connected to the right of the top pin. We then cover those with heat shrink or solder if you'd like, and then plug the aux cord 3.5mm end into the audio jack, and then the 2.5mm end into the camera. Now in real life, it starts by stripping both ends of the wire to show the copper. I did this with the printer cutters tool, and it wasn't too difficult to do. You're going to end up doing this for all 4 pieces of wiring. Next we will place the heat shrink tubing over one side of the wire ends. Now, like the schematic with the lever pointing to the left, or in my case the lever is pointing up, the black wire connects to the far right of the switch, and in my case that is the far bottom of the switch. The wire gets fed through the hole and then folded down around to normally secure it firmly. The red wire then connects adjacent to the black and the normally open pin. Once again, it gets fed through and bended back down and around to secure it firmly. Slide the tubing over the wire connection, and finally heating up the tubing will secure the wire connection. Now for the other side, we're going to start off with the tubing. Then, as in the schematic, if the longer pin is on top with the shorter pin on either side, the black wire connects to the top longer pin. We then slide the tubing over the wire, and the red wire connects to the shorter pin to the right of that. We then slide our red wire through the right pin. Now all we have to do is heat up the tubing to secure it, and we are good on the wiring. Next we take the switch mount that we printed out, and we are going to attach our switch to it like this, with the lever going over the plastic with the screw below the switch. We attach it using the number 2 by 1.5 wood screws, and they're going to screw like this going into the plastic. I use my scraping tool to tighten them up. And then once those are tightened, our switch is almost good to go. The lever is just a little too much over the line, and so when we put this on our printer, it's not gonna clear it correctly, and so we can use our cutters to bend the lever towards us in a way that will allow it to clear, and also for the extruder to hit the lever correctly and activate our camera. The cutting tool is only going to crease it, which makes it slightly easier to bend as well and not snap the metal off. And now the hardware is pretty much good to go. We just need to install it on our printer. And we can install that on our printer by using the M4 by 12mm screw and T-nut. Our piece connects onto the X-axis on the right side, about 1 centimeter from the bolt. As you see here, our piece is now firmly secured, and our switch works properly. We then plug in the 3.5mm end of your aux cord into the jack, and the 2.5mm end into the camera, as you can see being done now. We also need to switch autofocus to manual focus. We want to start the time lapse and use the switch properly. This is found on the lens of my Canon T3. And now when we hit the switch, we can see that a snapshot is taken on our camera. And when we move the extruder into the lever, it also takes a snapshot on our camera and works correctly. Now in Cura Ultimaker, we're going to go to Extensions, Post-Processing, and Modify G-Code, and then click Add a Script and click Search and Replace. Now for search, paste in semicolon, layer, colon, as linked in the description, and for replace, paste in the code linked in the description that begins with semicolon, start, and ending with for all axes. We can close out and go through the steps again to get there to see if we saved it correctly. We see that's there, so now all we have to do is close out once more, load up Pickle Rick, and when we hit slice, we see that our script is now attached and our G-code will execute. Now all we have to do is save to our disk, set up our camera in the optimal spot, and hit print. After each layer, the extruder will automatically head to the top right corner and hit our switch to take a picture. Dragging all the photos in an editor like DaVinci Resolve will automatically create the time-lapse video for you, and you can then drag this onto your timeline and click play to view your newly created time-lapse. To adjust the speeds, just simply right-click and hit Change Clip Speed. If we go slower, we can see more layers being built up. And we drag out our clip to get the full duration of the clip for the new adjusted speed. And we can see these layers now being shown a lot slower and a lot more of them too. Somewhere in the middle works the best to capturing the best time-lapse load up. Thank you guys so much for sticking to the end, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more cool content. Pickle Rick didn't really turn out too clean, just because of this layering right here, where his saliva hasn't really shown up too well, but I ended up spray painting him silver to make him a little more cleaner, and pretty happy with the product, at least with the time lapse. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.